So we can start right on time if that's, yeah, okay, Jessica's nodding her head. Okay, so if everybody just keeps themselves on mute until you want to speak, we would all appreciate that. The group leader of this does not have the function to mute everybody, so you got to keep yourselves on mute. Welcome everybody to the July Board of Trustees meeting. Thank you all for being so flexible in our postponement. Let me just tell you kind of what's going to happen tonight for our very exciting first Zoom meeting. Jessica and John have given me many pages of boilerplate script that I have to read for purposes of authorizing the electronic meeting and also for public comment. I'm going to go through all of that, which will require all of you at some point to acknowledge that you're here and you can hear and we can hear you, even though we've already basically done that. And then we are fortunate to have two presentations. So I'm going to let Jessica introduce those, at which point I'm going to do my last chair report. Dun, 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 very exciting. And we will have our Zoom election, and then I will be able to transfer over the symbolic gavel, which I do not have. And then Fran will finish up the meeting. So that's what's happening. And then we'll have an opportunity to have a roundtable at the end. Okay, so let me go ahead and start with the electronic meeting preface that I have to read. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the emergency ordinance, this Library Board of Trustees needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. First, because each member of this Library Board of Trustees is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all the other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask that each Library Board member participating in this meeting state your name and the location from which you're participating. I think home is fine. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. Okay, here we go. Brian Engler from Braddock.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I'm at home. You.
Okay.
Fran Millhauser from Mason District.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
And I'm at home.
I'm here in Providence, and I assume you can all hear me. Jane Miscavige from at-large representative.
Here, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm calling in from home.
Oh, right, we forgot that part. And I'm at home as well. Liz Walker from Sully District.
Here, and I'm calling in from home. And can you hear me?
We can hear you. Phil Rosenthal from Springfield. Okay, so I don't think Phil is on the line. Priscilla Dando from Public Schools.
I'm here, and I'm joining from home.
I was muted. Okay.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
So we can hear Priscilla and Phil. Go ahead. You can hear us?
Yeah, I'm calling from my home in Fairfax Station.
Okay, great. Good to know. Suzanne Levy from the City of Fairfax. Suzanne, you're still
Yes,
muted.
sorry, I had to unmute myself. I hear you, and I'm here in Sunset Beach, North Carolina.
Nice. Darren Ewing from Drainsville.
Present, I can hear you, and I'm at home.
Sheila Janica from Hunter Mill.
Here, I can hear you. Can you hear me? And I am at home.
Great. Gary Russell from Mount Vernon. Okay, Gary, you have to unmute.
Oh,
There
I
you
thought
are.
I did. I'm sorry. Now can you hear me?
And now we can hear you. Absolutely.
I'm at home.
Okay, so I think I got everybody. We clearly have a quorum. At this point, I'm passing the virtual gavel to the vice chair. I'm going to pass it to Fran so that I can make the motion. Fran, I'm passing the gavel to you. And I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of the Library Board of Trustees. And
Second.
Second. And everybody give me an eye by a thumbs up because we can see your faces. Excellent. Okay. All right. Now I'm taking the gavel back. Having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures, the fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this board to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, FOIA's usual procedures which require the physical assembly of this board and the physical presence of the public cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that this board may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated Zoom meeting, and that the public may access this meeting by going to, and the Zoom number is 92009370756 with the password of 610930. Actually, France still has the gavel since I moved it. Since I made the motion, can somebody second?
Second.
Second.
And if I could ask for people to give me a thumbs up in approval. Excellent. Finally, it's next required that all the matters addressed on today's agenda must address the emergency itself or are necessary for continuity in Fairfax County government or are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and the discharge of this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved, and I need another second,
Second.
Second.
and everybody approve. Excellent. Okay. Now we're moving on to the introduction for the public comment section. The library board wishes to provide an opportunity for the public to comment on library-related issues. It's our policy to hear a maximum of 10 speakers at each regularly scheduled board meeting. Speakers are limited to one public comment during a 6-month period. Each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes for their comments. A 30-second warning will be given before each speaker's time is up, and the speaker will be expected to end promptly when time is called. Speakers are requested to pre-register with the library director. However, if there are available public comment slots open at the time of a board meeting, the remaining slots may be filled by individuals registering at the meetings. The board members will not question or respond to speakers. Tonight, no one has registered, just confirming with Jessica that that is still the case. And if someone wishes to speak at a further meeting, Zoom or in person, please call the director's assistant. Okay, well, thank you all for being patient with all of those formalities. It's wonderful that tonight we have the opportunity to continue with our own education and recognition of some of the great work that's being done even during this time when people are all at home with the library. So Jessica, do you want to go ahead and introduce our special speakers this evening?
So your first presentation tonight is about our November 2020 bond, and our speaker is Joe LaHate, who is the county's debt manager. He works for the Department of Management and Budget. He's an all-around awesome guy, and he's got a very exciting presentation for you all. He'll be able to share his screen to run through the slide deck, and you are welcome to ask any questions as he goes along or at the end. And Joe, feel free to share your screen and start off.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you all for having the opportunity to let me be here tonight. I'm going to attempt to use my bare minimum IT skills here and share the screen. Okay. Actually, Madam Chair, if I could follow your lead, could I get a thumbs up that that screen is good to go? People can see? Excellent. Thank you very much. Again, thank you all for letting me be here tonight. Joe LaHate, Debt Manager of the Fairfax County Budget Office. I think of great importance to you all. This coming fall, we've got a referendum on the ballot, 4 questions. Obviously, the library one probably being of main importance to you all. So I'm going to use this opportunity to walk through kind of how we go about doing what we do in the capital planning process. So this plan actually goes back to the 1960s. And it's incorporated as part of the county's capital improvement program, which is a long-term 5-year plan, actually has an additional 5 years too, where we capture a whole series of projects, planning, guidance. We want to ensure that every single potential project the county is talking about or potentially building is in this document. It helps us plan, it helps us have coordination with the Planning Commission, and obviously keep our Board of Supervisors in the loop as well too. For those of you obviously very familiar with the county, every time we have a question on the ballot in the fall, it's generally fairly vague and specifically done so at the request of our Board of Supervisors. One thing I will say is if you have a question that's for library funding this fall, as you do, You cannot obviously take that money and use it for a different purpose, like parks or transportation. So whatever it's originally asked for, that's ultimately what it'll be spent on. The questions are typically worded very broadly, and I did have an example of the question for the library here. Again, because there are typically several projects we're going to fund and ask for approval from the voters. On the flip side, if you narrow it to maybe one specific library, one specific police station, the question always comes is, what if you maybe have a little bit of money left over? Can you then take that money and flip it to another project or another police station, another library? And the courts have been pretty consistent in the past about ruling that you cannot. So following the lead of our board and with their direction and guidance, we've kept these questions really, really vague because it allows us to kind of move ahead if there is some funding left over on the next set of projects in the queue. So it's worked well in the past, and we've pretty much kept that same process going forward right now. Generally speaking, we've had pretty good success with the voters, roughly in the mid-70 approval range. It's never really dipped that far below it. And obviously, knock on wood, we hope for the same to hold true this fall as well. A lot going on this fall election. I wanted to mention this because I think it hits close to home with the library purpose here, but the sunset rule. So the last time the libraries were on the ballot was in 2012 for about $25 million. And we still have right now $10 million remaining, which was originally planned for the Reston Library. So upon approval from the voters, you get an automatic 8 years to essentially sell that bond approval. There is an ability through approval from the Board of Supervisors and successful petition from the Circuit Court to get an additional 2 years. And just want to make sure you all knew from the beginning here that we are planning to do that this fall. Probably at the first September Board of Supervisors meeting, we're going to go ask for the 2-year extension. We've done this in the past. I think we've got some pretty good basic, background through discussions with our public works engineers. We don't want to lose this funding. We want to keep it. Everyone's in unison on that. We've had some conversations with the district supervisor in Hunter Mill. And generally speaking, we just wanted you all to be aware of that. So that's our plan going forward this fall. So pretty much every year there's an election in November, there's going to be a referenda question on the ballot. This being an even number of years, it's county. For those odd number of years, it's school. That's generally worked pretty well in the last several years. I think maybe once in 2015, we had a little bit of county, a little bit of schools, but we like to plan it out. We don't want to put too much on at one point in time. Obviously, there's various sensitivities to things, but this also helps us kind of plan out and keep things in check as far as our financial pieces, which I'll discuss a little bit later there too. So that's essentially kind of the background there. On slide 4, when I mentioned before, in this capital budget, we go way out. We go out in 2025 in the actual document. Internally, in some of my own forecasting, I go actually all the way out until 2040. Because you can imagine there's a lot of things here, not just for libraries, but you can see the other pieces here. This fall, we've got transportation, we've got parks, and we've got health and human services. Some of these things are on a recurring 4-year cycles. The schools obviously dealing with significant upgrades to their facilities. We've got them every other year, 360 million. The county numbers generally, depending on the category, can change. A lot of what we do every fall is we meet with departments, libraries included. We meet with the engineers and we talk about the scope of the projects, if there's any change in their cost estimate, obviously what's going on in the world of markets in terms of how that could drive costs, everything happening out there, obviously given the pandemic, where the change in commodities go, how does that affect the price of steel, asphalt, the whole 9 yards. So really pretty much the fall is used as a real good planning process for ultimately what's involved and unveiled at the February budget meeting from the county executive, which in this case would be the FY22 advertised budget. So just slicing a little bit deeper into what you'll see, 4 separate questions this fall will be on the ballot. Transportation, the county has a capital share to a metro, which in large part is for rail cars, updates of facilities, buses. This is everything but Silverline Phase 2. That's a whole separate funding process, but this is really just the base capital needs, which are pretty significant for the county, essentially based on number of riders, track miles within the county, and a few other factors that base it into a formula contribution. Parks, again, coupled with our own park system and an additional piece that we provide to the Northern Virginia Regional Park Authority. The libraries, as of which you all are well aware, the 4 pieces we've got here. And then lastly, the health and human services category, which we have 2 facilities, Crossroads which is a residential substance abuse center, and the Willard Health Center, located in the city of Fairfax, which provides a whole series of dental, x-ray, medical, pharmacy, the whole 9 yards to infants, children, and families. So quite a bit, 441 million total this fall. You know, I think obviously what's changed with the pandemic, we had put these questions and these amounts to our board this fall. Obviously, I think you all are pretty well aware that there were some major reductions from an operating perspective that occurred. But the board of supervisors voted to keep forward with the plans as we originally had advertised for these capital figures. They did not want to fall behind in infrastructure, obviously, which is crucial for a lot of these categories here, and ultimately keeps these projects on the timeline we originally had them. So we appreciated that, and that puts us an ability right now to try to, knock on wood, move forward, get some approval from the voters, and get these projects into the design phase. On the next slide, I'm not going to read it verbatim, but my whole point is that it kind of says we've got $90 million here, and we want to fund library facilities. It can be for construction, reconstruction, enlargement, additional facilities as necessary. Ultimately, the key piece here is that we're looking for flexibility in that question. And again, the 4 facilities we cited earlier. But this will ultimately be the question you will see on the ballot this fall. On slide 7, you know, the key piece here is, you know, how do we outreach with our citizens? You know, we've got 1 million+ people in Fairfax County, and call it in the days before there was anything such as Facebook or the internet. A lot of it was a traveling roadshow. It was by supervisor district, consisting with whoever department had projects on the ballot that fall, coupled with my predecessors, and we just went around and had an open forum, an ability to provide a similar presentation, talk about the projects, you know, what is debt, how much debt does the county have. So that practice essentially was kind of passed for the simple fact that with the onset of social media, website, Facebook, Twitter, the whole 9 yards, there's just an incredible basic source of efficiency the county now has to spread this same message through all the various online forums. We will still work internally as a county working group, again, consisting of myself, each of the department heads, and some of their designees, coupled with the project managers, to kind of make sure we've got things in line and on progress. The net result will also produce an additional bond pamphlet that will be mailed to all households this fall. For the most part, the wording is pretty much in decent shape in draft form. It will be vetted, you know, by the attorneys and additional staff contacts internally. We typically like to send that out, if not late September, early October. The challenge is trying to find that right medium of, we assume everyone's got access to the internet, but we also like to supplement that. And that's also proven to be a really good piece of history for myself when we kind of look back in terms of what we sold in prior years.
Can I ask you a question here?
Sure.
Is that okay? And early voting is going to begin around September 18th or 19th. So would there be any plan to move that timetable of informing the citizens before October to hit the early voting population, which could be pretty heavy with the COVID stuff?
Yeah, very good question. I fully agree. Everything will be up and fully online on the website. I can guarantee you that. Let me have some discussions and follow back up with you, if that's okay, Jessica.
Yeah, and I can confirm, because I have run through my round of edits on the plain language bond pamphlet for the public, that the intention is to have it out, if at all possible, before early voting starts.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think the challenge we've run into the past, a non-pandemic.
Can I ask a question, Phil? Number one, we're not at the end of July, so in my opinion, there's no reason that this thing can't be out before early voting. So somebody got to get on a stick. Second thing, maybe I don't understand at all, but we passed the 2012 money for rest, and this is 2020. Why do we have to go back to the circuit court and get approval for 2 more years? Why haven't we moved on that in the 8 years that we've had?
I'll be happy to speak to that a little bit, and Joe, you're welcome to jump in with any additional information.
Sure.
It was certainly planned that the bond money for Reston would have been spent or started to be spent before this point in time. An RFP for design purposes was issued in 2016, and there was one viable candidate that came through, and that ended up not even meeting the RFP qualifications. So that plan got scrapped, and there was plans to start a new RFP process, because the library is not alone in this design process. It's all of the facilities in Reston Town Center North. And it got caught up a little bit in some of the community questions and concerns about density in Reston. So it's hit a number of tangles along the way. Prior supervisor for Hunter Mill and the current supervisor for Hunter Mill are very dedicated to getting an improved Reston library, but they also want to be really cognizant of community concerns there. So, Joe, did I miss anything?
The only comment I have is in 8 years, all these issues should have been resolved. So I won't make any more comments.
So noted. My last piece with respect to the pamphlet, suffice to say, I think it's almost in good to final form with just a few sign-offs. The point being, in the past, we hadn't ever wanted to send it out too soon for fear of people losing it. Understanding now it's an entirely different circumstance where a lot of people probably will want to take advantage of voting early if they have the ability to do so. So by all means, this schedule is flexible and we've got an ability to adapt and make that possible. We want people to be informed. Okay, the next slide. So again, knock on wood, and then things follow past precedents. You know, the voters do approve these questions in the fall, and then that gives the county the ability to go back and sell bonds. And ultimately what we're selling here are general obligation bonds of Fairfax County. And that first bullet really says it all. It's the full faith and credit where we put everything behind these bonds. It is the highest form of certainty and payback that we can provide to a potential bondholder. Essentially saying that through whatever means necessary, revenue adjustments, expenditure adjustments, we will find and make sure we've got money set aside to pay those bondholders back. It's the ultimate form of payback, and again, the highest security that can be provided in the municipal bond market. And with that voter approval, you have the ability to provide that full faith and credit. That is written in the Virginia Constitution.
Joe, question.
Yes.
What is the total aggregate outstanding GO bond obligations as of now? Not include. We don't have any revenue bonds, right? We just got general obligation bonds.
Actually, Mr. Yoon, we've got a little bit of both, to tell you the truth.
We do have revenue bonds as well.
We do.
What's the total of aggregate?
Yeah, the estimate we've got right now is probably just about $3 billion total.
$3 billion,
Correct.
And what's the blended interest rate? Do you know?
Yeah, I would say anywhere. I'd say roughly 3.5.
Okay.
One of the rates. I've got a sheet I can send to you after, or again, just got to defer to you. However, you guys want some follow-up information. There's one sheet in our financials that kind of summarizes everything outstanding and the rate of those bonds outstanding.
And what's the duration on average duration?
Yeah, everything we sell for bonds is all 20 years. We do nothing longer than
What's
that.
outstanding? What's the life right now of all of them?
I would
combined,
say
basically.
Yeah, as we just sold this past January, so through 2039. Essentially where we've got debt outstanding.
2039 is the longest, but what's the average, life?
About 10 years.
10.
Yeah, our ability to refi and pay them off. Yeah.
I'm looking back at envelope, and it looks like the next 5 years we've got $1.25 billion. Does that look right? I'm just doing some quick math on what you put out there for the 5 years. So that'll put us at about 4 and 3/4, something like that?
Potentially, yeah.
And the rates, and just trying to get an idea, the rates on the 2020, we haven't sold them yet, so we don't know, but I'm assuming with rates pretty low and our ratings high, that
correct.
We're going to get, pretty good municipal. You think it'll be in the 3 range, low 3s?
No.
Or?
Actually, I think it'll be lower. It's just going off of what we sold. We typically sell every January. We find that to be a very good time because people are kind of just coming back from the holidays. There's low supply and incredibly high demand from investors. And this past January, we sold at, I think, 2%. It was a blend. It was a combo of 1.8 and one other, and it was a blended rate of 2%. And that was actually one of the lowest rates we had gotten in almost ever, I believe. And
is there any, and I'm jumping ahead, obviously, because a lot of these there's no chance to repackage the old stuff, even though it's cheap, but going, 75, 100 bips on $3 billion is big reduction. Is there any chance of refinancing any of that or no?
Yeah, we actually try. Every time we do a sale, we call it new money. So if we've got new projects, we provide a little bit of cash to fund those projects, but we also like to kill 2 birds, 1 stone. And we actually review all refinancing opportunities every month. So a lot of times if we've got a GO plan, it's probably going to be a twofer. It's going to be some new money for projects, but it's also going to refinance a portion of outstanding debt that we've issued previously as well too. And we're actually probably going to jump in the market within the next few weeks doing the exact same thing, just given the fact of where rates are.
Right, it's cheap money. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, not a problem at all. So again, this is really a source of pride. I hope it's a source of pride to your board. I know for obviously my position, the Fairfax Board of Supervisors, to be AAA from all three of these is not something that's easy. And I think if you can see anything here, it's rarefied air compared to the limited number of states, total counties, and cities and towns across the country that are in this category that have weathered some pretty good storms to maintain where we are as well too. And I'll talk a little bit later about the 10 principles here, but essentially those are our financial blueprints that kind of say what we stand for, how it is we manage what we do. So on to the next slide here. So when you're coming from a bond rating perspective, the bond rating agencies, maybe some of you maybe casually heard the name of Moody's, Fitch, or Standard & Poor's. So before we sell bonds, we have to give a credit review to them, and they ultimately issue ratings. And what I want to do here is just kind of give a perspective of what do these analysts in New York City look at when they're reviewing Fairfax's financials. So from a financial piece here, obviously, are we sound? You know, are we relying on one-time numbers to balance our budget? We have not. Years ago we did, and we got a little bit of feedback to the negative from them. Obviously, what do we have for reserves? Like any good family household, how much money do you have set aside in the case of a catastrophe or a pandemic if someone lost their jobs? Liabilities, which translates almost to just really pensions. It's such a huge piece they're seeing right now that they want to know what's the county's plan to ensure that we're fully funding or on the way to fully fund those pensions. Debt. Obviously, I showed you all a challenge and a calendar of us, planning to go to voters every year, selling bonds every year. They've seen our payback. They've seen our debt ratios and have referred to it as reasonable. And that rapid amortization, again, I cited 20 years before. Some jurisdictions do 25, some do 30, some utilities do even longer. We do 20 because it's fast and it's paid down quicker. Obviously, given our situation and where we are, from a geographical perspective, we've got pretty good socioeconomic factors here. We've got a pretty good school system, commercial activity that's got a combination of things through the Silver Line with activity built in Tysons and Reston, additional pieces that hope to get built up down in the Mount Vernon area. These last two pieces here can kind of be a little bit of a challenge. We had historically had very low unemployment rates. That's obviously ticked up in the last few months for the obvious reasons. And one of the big things that the rating agencies now are going to essentially extend their lens on to us is how are we handling the COVID-19 impact? I think if anything, we put together, the county budget office put together a carryover package just yesterday that had some pretty decent end of the year financials, but obviously we are by no means out of this. We've got a lot of planning still ahead of us this fall in terms of where some additional factors lay out. When do people start going back and buying things? What's going to happen to assessments when they get reset on 1/1/21? So a lot of those factors that we've got kind of built into some prep slides and that things we're going to need to plan for. And obviously the benefit of having some of the CARES Act funding that came from the federal government to us has helped. And then lastly, they do look closely. What is our management team? How are we handling things? Have we handled things like this before? I think being in this region, obviously sequestration was not too long ago. There was a point in time in 2012, when the federal government was approaching a debt ceiling limit. The question was, how is that going to impact everyone around here? And I think, there are various board members I know that can go back to the mid-90s when things were even more dire. But lastly, we have consistently had pretty good support for bond referendum. And obviously we're hoping for those same factors to hold true this fall as well too. So again, just to kind of give you some ideas at a high level of what people look at when they're thinking about rating our bonds from a general obligation perspective. So our plan right now, when we would anticipate doing a bond sale, and this would be in January of 21, we've got roughly about $314 million planned for the various categories you see here. Schools obviously take that largest share, slice of the pie at $180 million. And then some of the various categories that follow. Obviously, we've got libraries in there as well too. This is a planning factor. It may or may not be this number. I can tell you it won't be higher. It'll probably be a little bit lower. It really depends on cash flow needs. So one thing I just want to stress here is that in the case of libraries this fall, we're asking the voters to approve $90 million. we will not then turn around and go sell $90 million in January, a few months later. Our plan right now is to sell roughly $4 million. And our whole point is that we have an ability to cash flow this over several years because we want to keep that debt service number in check. We don't want it to spike too high. We want to keep it level so we can manage it properly. But that's, like I said before, just to kind of give you an idea of what's up for the queue this fall and how this all sort of rolls out in a process perspective here. Next slide. I've mentioned this before. This really is kind of who we are and what the county stands for, the 10 principles. You know, an ability to walk into any kind of investor meeting, a meeting with the rating agencies, and you just mention the 10 principles and you've kind of already got them nodding their head because I feel like we've mentioned these pieces so many times before to them. But the main point I want to stress is a policy is only as good as what you commit and maintain to it. So there's various points in time where we're going to say we're going to fund this, but we don't. There could be serious credibility questions. With respect to some of the pieces that we had gotten some feedback from them was we didn't have adequate reserves in their mind when you compared us against AAA benchmarks across the country. So in FY16, we revised our reserve funding limits. And over the course of the last several years, we've had to increase them every year to get them in line with more AAA rated jurisdictions. And just also, we had revised our general obligation bond sale limits to provide additional funding to the schools as well too. So again, these are not locked in stone. They're revised and reviewed every so often, depending on feedback from the rating agencies, consultation with our board. Obviously the school board was involved in that well too. But the key piece is that we always want to make sure that this can keep that AAA bond rating. Nothing's going to potentially jeopardize it. The two pieces I just want to cite here, and I'll reference on the next two pages, are within the 10 principles, we have specific benchmarks that relate to the issuance of debt. So we actually have some ceiling metrics we keep ourselves in line with to ensure that we're not over leveraged, for lack of a better word. And I'll refer to those two right now in the next couple slides. On slide 12, this is probably the most notable one. We call it our 10% debt ratio, meaning that your debt service payments on an annual fiscal year cannot exceed 10% of your total general fund disbursement budget. And you can see here, I kind of gave you a pretty good historical overview here that we've managed it pretty conservatively. So essentially through 2019 and 2020 are actuals, everything from 21 going all the way out are estimates. And I mean key estimates. At this point, those numbers could stick. We could revise some of those cash flows. But the key piece is we haven't tried to make something work. We only use a very modest 2% annual revenue growth. So we're not trying to make this double-digit revenue growth to make these numbers artificially come down. If there's anything we do, I think we're pretty conservative in all our analysis and forecasting. And in this case, I would fully expect actually some of those ratios in the out years to actually be a little bit lower, to tell you the truth. And then on the next slide, we give you a perspective here of Mr. Ewing. What you asked earlier was, you know, how much debt do we have outstanding? And I gave you roughly an estimate of about $3 billion, roughly where we are right now in 2021. And that being as a percent of what's our total assessed value of all that land and personal property in Fairfax County, meaning we cannot exceed that 3% limit. Given the fact that we've had pretty good growth occurring over the last several years and even projected into the future, we believe we're pretty comfortable under that 3% limit right here. And again, like I said before, we're not trying to make that revenue growth number be that much higher to make that metric come down even lower below that 1.3, 1.4% range. Again, these are two pretty consistent metrics that the rating agencies look at, even investors as well too, because they ultimately want to know, okay, how much of your budget is going towards debt? Do you have an ability to pay it back? And if it's kind of gaining a wider share through the years, is there any risk there? And we believe, and our whole point too, is that this is not going to imply that there's going to be a drastic increase required of your tax rate to make these debt service payments back.
Joe, quick question.
Yep.
Have you stress tested this with, you know, a recession to see what, you know, if it'll exceed the 3% limit, if, you know, there's another great recession, for example, with property values going way down, et cetera?
Exactly. We've stressed it so many different ways. I think the key piece really comes down to, I think, what our messaging was, I guess, we can stress it and forecast it a whole series of different ways. The next piece that came back to, I think, from the county executive and the CFO was, you know, would there need to be an ability to maybe dial back or hold off on a year bond sales? Meaning if things got really, really bad, would we have to maybe just consider taking a year off from bond sales? That's within the realm of possibilities too. There is nothing legally requiring our board to sell bonds in January 2021. Obviously, I think for the sake of infrastructure and moving forward with these projects, we'd all love to. Where things go over the course of the next couple of months, I think will be kind of an indicator of what we do this winter. But at this point, nothing can hold us back from doing refinancing opportunities. Trust me when I say we are going full steam ahead on that one, since that is just perfectly in the money right now for us to move on. And just lastly, this was kind of a high level, idea of where the timeline was in terms of where we've been. Everything has been approved by our board, signed off by the circuit court. At this point, we've put documents together. We talked about a bond pamphlet. One thing I also want to cite, yesterday at the Board of Supervisors meeting, they approved a plain language statement. So for those of you walking into the voting booth this fall, you will get a plain language statement for each of the 4 questions that you're being asked to vote on. That just kind of is a straight descriptor of what it is these monies will do, in very similar fashion worded to what will be in the bond pamphlet as well too. So again, just 2 additional pieces we're trying to provide every single voter and citizen in Fairfax County to have some of the information to them in a hard copy, coupled with all the social media pieces we've got as well too. And that essentially concludes my presentation. I can easily send this to Ms. Hudson to have a copy sent out, but if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to take some.
Joe, I really want to thank you for spending your Zoom evening with us after probably spending your whole day on Zoom, no doubt. But we appreciate the education, especially because, there's quite a bit of money being invested in the bonds being put on the fall ballot. And we, obviously we care greatly about knowing that there's going to be money behind the construction or the reconstruction of our libraries, especially the 4 that are on the list. And then, as we talked about, Reston. So we definitely appreciate the education, and thank you for joining us.
Okay, gotcha. If there are any other questions, please let me know. Be happy to answer them as follow-up, and appreciate the time to be here with you all tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye-bye. And so, Jessica, I know that every year we have a presentation on the summer reading program in one form or another. So we're really happy that Renee Edwards is here tonight to share what has got to be probably the most unusual summer reading program that you have put on, but we can't wait to hear about it.
Definitely. So we actually have 2 speakers tonight. Renee Edwards is our Programming and Educational Services Director, and she's joined by Tina Mraz, who is our Early Literacy Manager. And they're going to talk both about the summer reading program and about how virtual programs in general have been going for us. So I will invite either of them to speak and share their screen for their presentation.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to share our PowerPoint presentation. All right, so this evening, we're not going to only speak about summer reading, we're also going to speak about virtual programming in general. And I just want to start with the fact that then there was one. Someone told me that when the library closed and we began offering virtual programs, we went from a system of 22 branches to a system of just 1 branch. Because if you think about it, now programming doesn't only engage people living in a library service area, anyone in Fairfax County can attend a program no matter who's hosting the event. So in other words, our programs are now accessible to anyone, and that's pretty incredible to see. So today, let me go back real fast. Today, we're going to talk about the 2 main types of programs that we're offering our customers. We're offering them videos that we're uploading to YouTube, and we're also offering customers live events. So we're going to talk tonight about a few of the programs that we're offering for preschool, for school age, teens, and adults.
So for preschoolers, we're offering storytime videos that are getting hundreds of views, not just from library users here in Fairfax County, but from around the country. I know people have been watching them as far away as Texas. The Library of Virginia has also viewed our videos and found them engaging and entertaining. Our Early Literacy Services program is also using Zoom to offer outreach programming to children in childcare centers, family childcare homes, and preschools, and they're averaging around 15 children per program. We've also had some special programs. Today, author Karma Wilson premiered a story time for us on YouTube, and we've had music time with Jazzy J, who is a former preschool music teacher with more than 20 years of experience. And she recently presented a Zoom music program that we're going to turn into a series, as you can see, on August 15th and August 29th, and hopefully we'll have some more. Next slide, Ms. Renee. So for school age and teen programming, it's been going very well. These programs rely primarily on videos to connect with the public. And you can see here there's a variety of engaging topics for the kids and teens. But one special program that I'd like to point out tonight is Changing Lives Through Literature, which is an alternative to formal court action for first-time juvenile offenders. And it's used in conjunction with probation and parole. So this year is the first time we've ever had a virtual iteration of this program. And we're very excited to once again work with Dr. Mark Hobson and the dedicated staff at Stepping Stones, and of course the young men enrolled in the program. The sessions will be about 2 weeks in which the participants will meet 3 days a week for 2.5 weeks. We have a virtual graduation ceremony for them upon completion of the program. Next slide, Ms. Renee.
All right, and adult programming is going extremely well. Staff's offering a variety of programs using both videos and Zoom events. And the wonderful thing that branches are discovering is that their in-person events translate very successfully into virtual ones. So for example, Trivia Happy Hour, Art at the Library, and Socrates Cafe are in-person events that transition to virtual, and they're pretty successful. They're getting great attendance. We've been offering a variety of exercise programs, and those have been very popular as well. I just want to highlight our Reimagining America series that we hosted in late June to address the racial protests that were sparked by the murder of George Floyd. We really love Dr. Hobson. He not only created this series, he facilitated it, and we averaged about 70 people per program, and the feedback that we received was very positive. And I just want to share an email that I received from a participant who said some really wonderful, wonderful things about the series. Her email said, "I am especially grateful for your Complexities on Race series. I am white and have a close friend who is Black. As we have gotten to know each other over the years, I have learned that there are cultural differences, huge differences, between us because of our race. I was one of those people who thought, I don't see color, we're all people, so we're all alike. I was stunned as I began to see the world through her eyes, to learn and see how long-lasting and pervasive the effects of slavery are. Because of her, I've learned how important it is to acknowledge a person's race and learn about the influences our race has on our view of the world so that we can understand each other better, get to know each other on a deeper level, and interact with each other in a way that recognizes those differences to promote that better understanding." So worth offering programs when you get that type of response. And as you can see, we are not finished. We are offering more programs around this topic. And we're also working on programs that will create safe spaces for people of color to have open, honest dialogue. Some branches are offering English language learner conversation groups, and those are going very well. I believe each group is getting between 5 and 10 people per session. The numbers for our virtual events have been amazing. As you can see here, from mid-March to May, we've had 171 programs for all ages with a total of almost 51,000 participants. And just please note that the participants are people that have either viewed our program videos or attended live events. So here is just a breakdown by age and month. And I just have to note, if you look at the May numbers, this number is very close to the in-person events that we offered in May 2019. So people are definitely coming to our events virtually and they are appreciating them.
As you all know, our summer reading program is virtual this year and it is going very well. We transitioned from our traditional reading logs where the kids read a set number of titles and they got their coupon books. So starting on June 12th, individuals could sign up online and download a summer reading game board. So each age group has a game board divided into 3 prize milestones. Participants can complete the challenges on the game board, read or listen to a book of their choice, or any combination of the two. When they reach a prize milestone, they submit a form to be entered into a random drawing for one of 2 Amazon e-gift cards. And they can only submit one form for each milestone. And if you look at the numbers here, one surprising thing that we noticed was that the number of teen starters is higher than the school-age starters. And we don't think this has ever happened before. So virtual summer reading for teens is something that has worked very well. Overall, I think people are happy that we're able to offer them something this year. Okay, next slide, Renee.
Oh, well, let me say a few things about the adult summer reading really quickly. So for the adult summer reading program, we don't track starters like they do for SRA, but we have had over 1,800 people on our adult game board. And so far we've had over 250 people participate in adult summer reading. And I just want to talk about a special sponsor that we have for this summer. The Washington Nationals reached out to see if they could work with us in some capacity. And they are giving the Children's Summer Reading Program 500 tickets that we will award to kids who complete the summer reading program. So we're very excited about that. And they're also giving the adult summer reading program an additional 50 tickets. And these tickets will be redeemed electronically. We want our Brent staff to participate in summer reading too. So we created a board just for them. And staff who participate will be entered into a raffle for a $40 gift card. We will have one winner from each cluster, thanks to the generous donation of Vickley. And so I just want to conclude with some food for thought. I don't think anyone would disagree with me when I say that 2020 has been a very difficult year. But if I had to pick one good work-related thing that came out of the pandemic, it would have to be virtual programming. I don't want us to leave virtual programming behind once we move back to normal. So I think the question that we need to ask ourselves is, how do we continue offering virtual programming? In-person events are important, but I realize that virtual events are equally important. And I think because it goes back to that accessibility that I talked about earlier. So I think the next part of discussions about the future of programming would center around this. Thank you for inviting us to speak. Are there any questions or comments?
Thank you.
I am so impressed by the level of creativity and engagement that you guys came up with so quickly too. It's not like you had any time to plan. you know, to convert it. And then also the fact that the library was able to get the technology support that they needed to make this operate. I'm just, you know, I mean, I'm amazed that we can all get on a Zoom meeting, even though we're doing it every day. So the fact that we've been successful is really, you know, tremendous, really tremendous.
I think our team shined. I think Brent staff, I think admin staff, we just rose to the occasion. We dug down deep and we did what we had to do, and the result has been fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's great. And I'm sure you will carry forward a lot of these programs, even when we are, you know, knock on wood, back together in the library, because we see how useful they are and how much people now know about them and rely on them. And hopefully they'll turn to the library webpage for other things. Sheila?
Yeah, I would like to say I attended the Reimagining America online live. And it was the most fantastic experience. Dr. Mark Hobson, I just can't praise him enough. The panel was from all over the United States, different ages. We went through the history. We went through to what about now and the different groups that are involved in Black Lives Matter. It was one of the, I would say, life-changing for me. And I attended the Roundtable this week, and that was really one of the most interesting experiences I have had. You know, talking from our hearts and not worrying about what we were saying and sharing, you know, experiences and feelings and observations about racism in our country. So I so commend Renee for this program and Dr. Mark Hobson for his moderating and his teaching. It was just wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jessica.
Well, thank you for joining us. Have a good night. And I know that we're all going to be turning to the library events page now.
Please, I want to see you there. I see some of you at our programs. I don't see everyone. All right. Have a nice night.
All right. Good night.
Night, ladies.
Okay, so I think what we need to do now is approve the minutes from March and June, which were in the package. Why doesn't somebody make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
And a second. Just somebody wave at me.
I can't second my own motion.
You can't second your own motion. Somebody wave who's going to
I'll
second.
second it.
There we go. Oh, excellent. And everybody thumbs up. Okay. This is the easiest way to do this, to get the approvals. Okay, so we are going to go ahead. I'm going to do a chair's report. And since it is my final chair's report, I just wanted to spend just a few minutes kind of reflecting on the past 2 years that I've been chair with you all very briefly before we turn it over to our new chair and vice chair. First of all, I want to thank Fran greatly for being my wonderful vice chair for these past 2 years. And I know she's going to be an amazing chair. And of course, I need to thank Jessica and John and Christine and the entire staff. You guys make us look so good. And as I've said many times, everybody loves the library. So I've always gotten such positive responses just, you know, from friends when I say that I'm chair of the library, and then they find out that I can't move myself up the hold list and they wonder why this is such an honor. But I have felt that it has been really a great honor to serve as chair. You know, during my term, I started out saying that I wanted our goals to be education and advocacy. Education, as you just as demonstrated tonight, because the more that we were able to learn about the amazing resources that our library system has to offer, the more that we can really share that with the people in our little circle, the people in our greater circles, and of course, advocacy, our supervisors and our supervisor staff. And I know that a number of you have taken that to both the state level stage and the national stage for advocacy. And I know that we're all going to continue doing that because ultimately our job as trustees is to represent the library to the world and also to do the best we can to get resources and attention to our library. We started out, I think, a few projects people probably have forgotten. We were just coming off when I started chair with the new MOUs with our friends groups. I will say very happily, we've heard very little, if nothing, since then, which means the MOUs have been incorporated. The new relationship has not caused, well, I won't say no hiccups, but very small hiccups, if any. The friends groups were doing really well. Unfortunately, everybody's in the situation now, but are very strong. And in fact, we were able to reestablish, I think, 2 friends groups that had stopped being in existence, but are now back up. And so I think, again, I just want to say on the record how much I, as chair, appreciate the work and the effort of our friends groups, their volunteer hours, the hundreds and thousands of volunteer hours, and of course, the resources and money that they donate to their library branches. And the system is all really, unfortunately, couldn't operate without them. I also just want to recognize the foundation and their partnership with us, recognize Will and Suzanne working with the foundation, and those of you who are board members on the foundation, Fran and Brian, because again, you know, the foundation is there to support the library, and they are, even now, from Zoom, working to fundraise and move forward. Thank you to the people who were on the committees and committee chairs, Sheila, Brian, Fran, Gary, Darren, Jane, Will, and now Suzanne pretty much can name the whole board. The fact that all of you were very involved and actively thinking in between our board meetings about how to advance our work is really so important, and makes this library board an active and engaged and important group of citizen volunteers. One of the things that we really wanted to do this past 2 years was recognize loudly the achievements of our staff and of the system, because, I mean, it was such a banner couple of years, even before I got on, with being recognized locally, state, and nationally. And we were able to do that in the annual report, which was amazing. I still love our annual report. Not sure if we're going to have yet another one this year, but we will have another one that will recognize. And I think the next annual report should truly recognize the tremendous creative achievements, such that we've heard tonight, about how we responded during this crisis. Really a highlight, and maybe a low light, was the success of the coalition to expand library access. I think one of the things it showed was how enthusiastic our partners in the community are around supporting our libraries, and how willing people were to volunteer their time and energy to form this coalition to really advance that cause. And we did really well. As Jane will say, it was a big smiley face achievement. And I think we feel very positive that when this crisis is over, you know, when our economic situation is better in the county, that this issue, the commitment to expand access because of what it means for supporting the One Fairfax strategic goal, because what it means to, you know, supporting equity and removing obstacles to our citizenship, that supervisors will again support it. And so we very much believe that it will be, well, we're going to make sure it's at the top of the agenda when the money is available, so that we can move back into that, good space of moving to expand library access. And lastly, I really can only express my admiration and deep gratitude for how the management of the library and all of the staff has jumped in to respond to the COVID crisis. I know I speak for everybody on the board in saying how proud I am to be part of the board during this time when the library has continued to provide services, even when it means somebody is running up and down flights of stairs, delivering books in grocery bags. The fact that, you know, the staff is really willing to go out and do everything they can to continue to provide this service is super meaningful. And I certainly hope and know that our Fairfax County citizens appreciate it. So having said that, I will take the honor of moving that our new chair is Fran Milhauser and our new vice chair is Jane Miscavige. And if I could get somebody to Maybe everybody take themselves off mute so we can all say aye. So somebody second that motion.
Second.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye. Hey, what, can I abstain? No, just kidding.
All right, so now I am virtually turning it over to Fran to take it away for the rest of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. I thought I had until the end of all the committee reports, but I'm ready.
You're ready. Go.
I'm ready. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. So I guess the first thing, oh, my cat just got here. How about Suzanne give us the foundation report from her beach home?
Okay, the foundation board met June 9th virtually and elected a new vice chair, Mary Jo Patterson. The Jubilee is kind of still up in the air, or was as of that point. The virtual event planned for October 3rd has been canceled, but they're working on trying to come up with some ways to be out there and do some fundraising. The foundation was ready to file for a CARES grant when the link opened. I haven't heard anything further, whether they did or not. Jessica, do you know something?
They did apply. They have not heard back yet.
Okay, thank you. Their income and expenses, of course, are both down for FY20. The FY21 budget is $50,000 less than this year's budget, and it's being monitored by the Finance Committee. The Scholarship Committee keeps on trucking, and we have a new set of applicants that we'll be going over in the next 10 days or so. Since ALA was canceled, grants that have been approved to go to ALA, you know, there's no expenses involved in going, and I'm not sure if any of the people chose to attend virtually. And I'm sure we'll get a report when we have our next scholarship meeting. And that's all I have to share.
Thank you, Suzanne. I will just add, since I'm on the Foundation Board Resources Committee, that we're having a Foundation Board Resources brainstorming, and it will be my first opportunity to use a software called Miro. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but it's like an online, or that's probably the wrong term. It's a virtual way to write sticky notes and put them up on a flip chart, just like in the old days of doing brainstorming. So it should be fun. And we're going to be brainstorming on what resources do we want to make sure that we have on the foundation board as we move forward to doing even more targeted targeted funding and things like that. So it should be an interesting results, I think, for the foundation board. So that's about it for the foundation. So how about Darren, a financial committee report?
Nothing to report.
Well, I have to say, I really appreciate your knowledge and your questions. You bring up things I have, I'm very interested in and don't know about. So I really appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Outreach committee, Sheila.
Okay, I'm muted. We have a meeting planned for the end of August. The date hasn't been set yet, but we have a couple of dates that we will be setting, and we'll let you know when that happens.
Okay, thank you. And the nominating committee, do you have anything else to report?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, congrats.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you for your work. That can be, well, it went pretty smoothly this time. I've been on nominating committee before, and it can be very, no, I really don't want to do that. And so this went well. Thank you. And I think it speaks to the work that the board has been doing, and also Miriam's leadership, that it just, you know, it's like, yeah, that looks good. We can keep doing that. It's perfect. Yeah, thank you. And now on to the director's report.
Sure, thank you, Fran. The first thing I'm going to share is my screen, and we'll do a brief presentation about how curbside and express services have been going. So hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent, good. So we have been closed for a while and we're still not back up to full speed, but we're offering curbside and express services, and this seemed like a great opportunity to provide you all with some information about how it's been going. So first of all, just as a reminder, we closed all the branches on March 16th, and staff were offered pandemic leave through the county if they met certain qualifications on March 19th, and that lasted for about 6 weeks. We began curbside service on June 1st, and we started up with our express library services on the 13th. So curbside has been super popular. We expected it was going to be really popular when our facilities were closed, but we've been reminded of how much people appreciate options right now. The facilities are reopened and people are continuing to use curbside. We have two main offerings with curbside. You can either pick up items that you've placed on hold yourself, or you can have staff curated grab bags. And those, I think, have been the most intriguing part of this. Staff have really enjoyed the opportunity to do some really in-depth readers advisory and create these awesome little bags of things that people just have been thrilled to get, particularly parents with children. We've had a lot of social media posts and graphics shared of kids all queued up on the sofa after they've come and picked up their grab bags at the library, and everyone is just happily reading. It's very, very sweet. Curbside started off just Monday through Friday, but we soon found that it was working fine, and the public really wanted some hours that were outside of their working schedule, so we expanded to Saturdays, and curbside continues Monday through Friday, 10 to 4. I also want to call out the little graphic on the left side here was created by our wonderful marketing departments, and you'll see a couple of those as we run through these. And you saw one during Renee's presentation earlier, the online storytime one. They've just done a really bang up job in creating very visually appealing little bite-sized things that we can attach to things. So my congrats to them. Express service has been going on for a little over 2 weeks now, and it's been going pretty well. As a reminder, this means that people can only stay for 30 minutes, that we have limits on how many people can come into the facility. We don't have any on-site programs, meeting rooms can't be used, but you can come in, you can browse, you can use a computer, you can chat with staff, you can check out your own stuff. There's an opportunity to engage with our physical materials and staff if you choose to. And what we've seen so far, both in the library and in other county agencies, is that most of the public who chooses to come into our facilities has been very willing to comply with our guidance and regulations. So people have been, generally speaking, wearing masks. They've been able to maintain social distancing. Most folks have been fine with the 30-minute time limit. We, of course, have outliers and have been handling those as they crop up. But overall, people have been very, very willing and thrilled to have in-branch library services again. I did want to show this on the next one. This is a highlight of how things are going circulation-wise. So you'll see that when we were just doing curbside, we were averaging about 8,000 circulations a day, which is pretty decent for us. It's, you know, not what we would do in a regular opening service, but not too bad. And once we were open for curbside, the split of services has shifted a little bit. So we're still seeing some curbside, about 2,600 a day, so maybe a third of what we had been doing. And we're seeing about the same amount of people coming up to a service desk. But the majority of what people are doing is self-check, which is exactly what we wanted them to do. Although we have plexiglass up and we're asking people to maintain distances and they're wearing masks, self-check is still the best option for the public right now. They can do it themselves, they can go wash their hands afterwards, and people have been very, very willing to do that. You can see from the circulation statistics. The last box on there is about our digital offerings, and you can see there 7,300 checkouts a day. Pretty huge, pretty huge. That was about even with what we were doing curbside totals, and it's, you know, two-thirds-ish of what we're doing total in physical circulation now, but that's still a huge jump from what we saw previously. Although this is not exactly circulation related, I also wanted to share with you all some computer usage statistics. We were very hopeful that when we reopened the facilities that people wouldn't kind of rush to use the computers, but that the folks who really needed those services would have an opportunity to have them. And for the 2 weeks that we had been reopened in full, we've seen about 3,000 computer sessions, and most branches are averaging between 10 and 20 computer users a day. Most usages are happening at the regionals, which makes sense. They've got more computers. George Mason's actually been the busiest. They've been averaging about 18 sessions a day, with Reston, Sherwood, Pohick, Centerville, and Fairfax falling closely shortly after. And 2 communities, Woodrow and TJ, also on the higher end of computer usage. So we're very happy we've been able to offer that, even though we aren't able to offer quite as many in-person assistants because we can't get up close and personal with folks. Yes.
How do you manage the 30-minute time limit? How does that get handled?
We are very, very fortunate that most library users are great rule followers. And so when we say, please stay for 30 minutes, they tend to stay for 30 minutes. And we're not stamping people's hands. We're not issuing them time ticket when they come in. It's really on their honor. And thankfully, we have been much under capacity limits for almost all of our facilities. We've been averaging, 20 or 30 people in a building at a time, which is not bad at all. Compared to what the capacity limits were for some locations. So we've had a few folks that have been staying a little bit longer, and branches have had the opportunity to extend time as needed if people really need assistance. But generally, folks have been just compliant on their own, which is lovely.
I just find that fascinating because it's so easy to get lost in time when you're in the library, and if you're using browsing on the shelves and then you're using the computer, it just could go so fast.
Well, the computer one is nice because we can limit the sessions to 30 minutes. So if you come in and you hop on the computer immediately, you can only stay on for 30 minutes. There's not a lot of opportunity to linger unless you have figured out how to make your own guest pass, which I'm sure we've had some people do. Our wonderful staff in both technical operations and Doug Miller, our statistic planner and researcher, pulled all of this data. And the bullet on the side shows that even though we feel like we're doing pretty good, we still saw about a 62% decrease in circulations from the same period last year, which, is not great, but still, if all we were offering for the majority of that time was virtual offerings and 2 weeks of physical checkouts in person, we're going to be okay with that. We're already planning some additional language when we submit our data reports to the state to remind them of why such a large decrease is in place there. Public reception has been fantastic. I included a couple of little pictures here just for you to see how things have been going, and many of these are posted on our social media accounts as well. So the Post-it note on the top right in the graphic was just included in a book. It says, "Thank you, you are a saving grace." And the one on the bottom right, I assume was drawn by a child, but could not verify that. Although their little bookworm is better done than what I could do. The picture on the top left is a snack box that someone brought into staff at Pohick, and they're all either individually wrapped items or fruit that you unwrap to eat parts of. And we've gotten so many comments of the same kind. People are just, they missed us. They missed in-person interactions, they missed physical library materials, and they're so, so grateful for the opportunity to choose. They can come to the library, they can continue to use virtual, they can have curbside, whatever works best for them. And as we've been reopening, we've also been trying to offer more socially distant opportunities for people to participate. So the picture in the bottom left corner is a story walk that was created at the Martha Washington Library, and they use sidewalk paint or chalk, I'm not sure, to kind of walk people through the process. And I just thought it was a very sweet example of how creative our staff are throughout all of this. You'll recall from your phone presentation in June that we are quarantining materials for 72 hours, which was the guidance at that time for library materials. We have since learned that board books, there is a trace of the virus still found at 96 hours. And so all board books have been pulled from circulation. Instead of increasing quarantine for everything, we just opted to pull those because, as our someone on our staff put so graciously, that is the item most likely to travel to someone's mouth.
Yeah.
And we thought that's a good one. We'll just set that aside for now and handle those later. We continue to see large volumes of both returns and holds and checkouts. So our meeting rooms are continuing to be used to hold quarantined materials. And because of the volume coming in, we're also not accepting donations right now. All of the friends groups have been notified, and we're happy to chat with any of them about this, but that's where we're at right now. We just can't handle additional materials. Follow up on a couple of other items. The county is still under a hiring freeze, and anytime we desperately need to fill a position, we have to fill out a justification form and talk about why we couldn't fill it with other staff, we couldn't backfill it with other agency staff from across the county, or we couldn't just absorb it for a little bit. So we've been very judicious in our requests to fill positions. The most recent one we've had approved was 4 community circulation managers, because we've got bundles of circ managers that are vacant right now. And the county continues to very strongly monitor budgets for all agencies. The carryover packet was part of the board process at their meeting yesterday, and almost no requests for carryover funding were approved. Most of it was allowed to fall out so that it was available for pandemic needs if they came up. The county has reinstituted a mid-year budget review. So in late October, early November, every agency will have to complete documentation about where we are with our budget, how much fallout we anticipate, and any unfunded areas that might need to be covered elsewhere. And we have not received budget guidance yet for fiscal year 22, but we're expecting it to be, not great, not horrible, but not great. The county has been really fortunate in some ways that most of the money that comes in comes from property. So the money that we needed for the fiscal year 21 budget, we kind of already know where it's going to be, both for residential and commercial real estate. But in fiscal year 22, even though residential real estate is looking good, there is definitely some nervousness around commercial real estate due to increased vacancies. So as soon as I know more, I will happily share, but for now, we're just planning forward. The county is also continuing to spend down its federal funding allocation of CARES money. Officially, I think it's 120 million of the 200 million that's been allocated. And unofficially, I think it's closer to 140 because they increased the funding for the WISE grants for nonprofits. And we've got until December 31st to spend that. So every agency, as we have funds that are eligible for that CARES or FEMA funding, we have this really exciting convoluted process that we go through to request reimbursement from that separate agency funding pool. We're pretty lucky. We don't have a ton of needs that come from CARES funding other than PPE and some of the administrative leave that was generated, but other agencies like the health department and Office of Emergency Management, they're handling more of those cash dollars. And then the last item on this page is just an FYI. I am sure that many of you have seen that FCPS has opted to start all virtual on September 8th. Online instruction is Tuesday through Friday, and independent learning is on Monday. So we're anticipating seeing some additional kiddos in the library on Monday when it's independent learning day, and we're already starting to plan and discuss methods to both support those populations and not encourage people to drop their unattended children off at the library on Mondays. So that is my update on express services and curbside. I'd be happy to answer any questions about that topic before I move on to the other ones in my report.
I have a question, Jessica. Am I recalling correctly that when the budget was approved for this year, that it was with the caveat that things would be reassessed mid-year in January?
You are correct. So I think they're keeping every option open right now. They're reviewing at the mid-year review point. So the guidance we've received so far is that agencies are going to need to submit a mid-year review sometime in early November. The board will receive that packet in mid to late November, and then they'll vote on it in mid-January after the holidays. They could change that timing, but that's what I'm aware of right now. So we'll see how it goes. Other questions on this topic? No? Okay, I had a couple of other things to share then. The first is a confirmation that we are working on fiscal year 20 annual reports. It is currently being drafted by our wonderful staff in marketing, and it will go to the outreach committee at their August meeting for review and edits. So you will have something to look at from there. It's been a busy year, even though part of it got sucked up by COVID stuff. So we will have that to share. In addition to the bond plan language being approved at yesterday's Board of Supervisor meeting, at their meeting on the 14th, they approved an agreement between the county and the town of Vienna for design and construction of the Patrick Henry Library and parking structure, which is fantastic. We've been working on this joint agreement for over a year now, and certainly hit a few bumps in the road, but nothing that couldn't be worked out. And it outlines both the timeline, the payment schedule, and the kind of out clauses for both the town and the county as we collaboratively design and pay for the parking structure that's going to be attached to the library. So Sheila's had a chance to see some of that, and very exciting document if anyone wants to read it, but it's looking really good. So we're all very pleased about that. You know, the county bond funding for Patrick Henry is $23 million, and that covers our portion of the parking structure and the entirety of the library. The town of Vienna is slightly smaller than the county, and so they're actually going to go out for bond funding twice. They'll go out in November for their portion of the design money, and they'll go out in 2022 their portion of the construction costs. So we needed to make sure we developed an agreement that gave them opportunities if either of their bond funds didn't pass. Let's see. Oh, we have a guest on our Zoom session today. I would love to introduce you to Erin Julius. She is our new Marketing and Communications Director. She's on the bottom left of my screen. I don't know where she is on yours. Erin, would you like to say anything?
I would like to reiterate that there will be an annual report, and that I wrote the section about how we've adapted to COVID myself my second week. So I assume that will be in there. And it's my third week now. I have visited 2 of the branches. Everybody has been very welcoming. And earlier in the meeting, somebody said how great it is to work for libraries because they get all these positive comments. And I have also noticed the same thing since I've started. Everybody has wonderful things to say about my new employer. So that's very nice.
Excellent. Well, we're thrilled Erin joined us. She came from George Washington. Given us some really great ideas and really positive energy, and we know she's going to be a fantastic addition. So thank you for joining us. And Erin will be participating with the outreach committee, so she will be at the August meeting as well. So those of you on that group will have a chance to get to know her a little bit better. The only other item I have here is the county inventory on Confederate named sites. No action is needed by this board. This is just an FYI. The county is putting together an inventory through the History Commission for their review in early 2021. And one of the items that they included as part of their board discussion was that they may reach out to boards, authorities, and commissions if they wanted additional feedback. So I included the board item for you all, but you don't need to have, there's no action needed at this time. And that is everything on my report.
Okay, thank you. And before I start the roundtable, I just want to thank you for your expressing your faith in me, fellow board members. I will try to fill the wonderful shoes of Miriam. I always admire them, so now's my opportunity. And I'm crossing my fingers and taking all precautions and hoping that things will calm down on all the fronts. I mean, we're really living through. It's more than exciting. It's like crisis to crisis almost. In the meantime, I'm proud of Fairfax County's response. I feel really grateful to be living in a county that's so responsibly managed, and just every time I see the report from Chair McKay, I just like, okay, good, we're in good hands here. And I feel the same way about the library. I want to give a really huge shout out and kudo to Jessica for establishing such an atmosphere of creativity and excellence in the library. And that just has trickled to all the staff, and the response that we've seen the examples of at this at the presentations, and that we from our own libraries when we go and get our grab and go holds. I mean, it's just been really great, great to see. So I'm hoping for a bright future. I mean, it can be kind of daunting right now, but a bright future, including the brand new library user that will be coming along in a few months. So now let's have our roundtable. I'm not sure what's the best way to go around the table?
Fran, why don't you just call people?
Okay,
Call
all right.
people's
So,
names.
so the first person I see is Gary. You got anything? Look at you, look at you, Miriam, still being chair.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Miriam, for her great work, and congratulations to you and Jane for the great work that you're going to do.
Thank you. Okay, Miriam, you're next on my screen.
So I wanted to mention that, you know, before all the cancellations, Jane and Jessica and I were supposed to go to the annual Library Association convention and do a panel on, I can't remember the formal title because Jessica wrote it, but basically on advocating for your library and using the example of our Coalition to Expand Access. So it was a great program. The plan was a great program. It still is a great program. The virtual library, which is affiliated with the ALA annual convention, decided to do an online convention or an online 3 days of programming and asked us to do the presentation. And so we just taped it on earlier this week, taped the PowerPoint, and then what they're doing is the program will actually air as part of their virtual lineup on August 6th, and the three of us will have a little question and answer session, and hopefully there will be people out there who have watched it who will have questions. So just wanted to let people know.
Yeah, that's cool.
Will we get to see it? Will it be on YouTube or something? I forget.
I don't know.
So the conference is sponsored by United for Libraries, and it's entirely virtual. They've got a lineup all next week, and after tonight's meeting, or more likely probably tomorrow morning, I'll send you all the link to it. We're trying to confirm, some of you are ALA members, some of you are not. So if you have a membership, you don't have to pay anything. If you don't, it's $49, and we'll cover the cost for it.
Okay, yeah, I think I got an email from United for Libraries about that. So, because I am a member. Great, I'll look for it.
Okay, so Brian, do you have anything else for Roundtable?
Oh, me? Yeah.
Yep,
Braddock
you're
District.
on my list.
Sure, yeah, see, I know you're speaking. Yeah, I want to thank Miriam too. I appreciate it. You've been the chair since I've been on the board, and I enjoy it. And congratulations to both Fran and Jane. I really look forward to working with y'all. As far as the Braddock District goes, I've been to both Burke Center and Kings Park since the express service started. I like what they're doing. They aren't as busy as I thought they might be, and I've been to Burke Center more often because it's right around the corner. But that's good in a way. They don't. I asked about the 30 minutes, and they haven't had to push it, and that's good, I think. And they also haven't had any reports that I've heard of nasty patrons or anything. So I think we're doing well, and I appreciate that. I also have talked to our friends about the donations. We understand we can't take them at Burke Center, of course, where I work on. But it'll be nice if someday we could, because we have many, many books to sell for the benefit. Right.
Sheila, you're next on my screen.
Okay. I follow what everybody else is saying. Thank you so much, Miriam. You had quite a 2 years. Congratulations, Fran and Jane. We look forward to your reign. Welcome, Aaron. We're happy to have you on board. And I also want to thank Jessica and Renee and the library for the incredible response to the pandemic and opening. I know the community appreciates it, and I am so happy that my holds are coming in personally. So, and also the virtual programming has been just fantastic. And, you know, I think that we're hopefully we're on the road to better days.
Definitely. Priscilla, you're next up for me.
Thank you. Again, thank you to Miriam, and I just appreciate the straightforward leadership and the forward thinking and thinking outside of thinking for the future as well as the present, which I think is really important in leadership. And of course, really excited about Fran taking the gavel, so to speak, and Jane as vice chair. I wanted to comment that, and I'm sorry that they aren't still on the meeting, but that Renee and Tina, not only did they present us with a wide variety of programming, some of which, from my recollection, we've never had of the type before, but their enthusiasm even in presenting it and sharing it, it just really comes through. And although they were the faces of the people that were telling us what was happening, we know that there's a huge team in individual branches and in the administrative office that thinks about how we can provide service through the core vision of meeting the needs of our community. And I think it was really well illustrated in that presentation. So I wanted to thank them for that, and welcome to Erin, because marketing is such an important part of what a public library needs in order to get the message out and also leverage their support so that we can provide even more services. Along those same lines, we're going on to 3 years where we have been working with the FCPS group, a small group in FCPS and a small group in FCPL, have been working to expand service to students through the LEAP program. LEAP stands for Library Equity Access Pass. It's been it's like slow and steady wins the race, I suppose, because it's taken quite a while, much longer than either Jessica or myself imagined. But the really great news is that we are completely on track, and it couldn't be better timing, frankly, to have access for any student that is enrolled in FCPS to have a fines-free, bills-free experience, and being able to walk up and check out physical materials from our public branches. And what that's going to mean for our students right now, especially as we realized in FCPS, one of the biggest deficits that we experienced in the spring was the inability for the school system to provide print books to students. And being able to at least have that as a safety net while we are still able to, of course, under the favor of the governor in order to continue doing these sorts of things. I just feel like, although we do have plans in FCPS to do some similar things around providing text to students, the public library system in Fairfax County really led the way. And I just wanted to personally say thank you for being committed to doing that in such a smooth and organized manner and just staying true to your mission. So that's enough for me being on a soapbox. But today I'm a really proud trustee member as a result of this meeting. So thank you for everything.
Liz, you're up next.
Okay, well, this is my 3rd meeting. My first meeting was basically an award ceremony. Second one was a short one on the phone that was very limited to what we could discuss. And this is the 3rd one, and I really feel that if our meetings going forward are like this one, it's really a lot to be proud of and very informative, well run. Thank you, Miriam. Very, very, very good meeting. Again, I haven't been associated with you very long, but I'm very impressed with what you have done leading the board. And Fran and Jane, I'm really thrilled to be under your leadership going forward. And Jessica, you and your entire team have so much to be proud of. I'm so impressed with how the library has handled the situation under the COVID-19. I now am inspired to pick up things again. All of my meetings with my 3 librarians were canceled as soon as we made them. And I see that maybe it might not be inappropriate for me to pick it up at this point and see if the librarians are ready to have a social distancing meeting with myself. And again, I'm inspired to make more visits, see how things are going, and understand some of the nuances and some of the things that are being discussed, since I'm just really at the beginning of my learning curve. So thank you all. Good to see your faces. And I think these Zoom meetings can continue as far as I'm concerned. Well done.
Thank you. So Jane, you're up next. So unmute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured it out.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I really, I'm always in awe of Jessica and staff. So thank you to staff for making a Zoom meeting happen. I feel like we may need to move to this format. You know, if we might, this was a good first run at it. So thanks, because I think it's important for us as trustees to stay connected and keep our sense of community. Because as we, heard from the presentations tonight, people really look to the library. They always do, but now more than ever, I think the library is a huge coping mechanism for a lot of our neighbors. So I'm hoping that we can stay in touch this way if we can't see each other in person. I also wanted to thank Miriam. I think Miriam, you became chair shortly after I joined the board. And I think your twin goals of education and advocacy were amazing. You've laid a foundation for a lot of growth in the years to come. And personally, very selfishly, I've really enjoyed all the presentations we've had at our board meetings. We really enjoyed learning how the county works and the library's role in it. So Miriam, you're a genius. Thank you. And everybody stay healthy, keep wearing those masks and washing your hands.
Thank you, Jane. And Phil?
I hope you will indulge me for a minute this evening. First, I want to thank Jessica for really doing a great job during this terrible process that we've had to go through. I think she's done a nice job. Miriam did a beautiful job, and I thank Fran and Jane and give them good luck moving forward. I want to make a couple disclaimers, and I want to make a statement, and I won't make it long. What I'm going to say is what I think. It's not what my supervisor thinks. Secondly, if you came to my office, 65% of my employees are African American. My HR director is African American. My compliance director is African American. 2 of the 3 floor supervisors are African American. Gentleman that ran the collection floor, he moved because of health issues, was an African American. My accounting department is 2 African Americans. My IT department has African Americans. So I'm not a racist. But I went on the library website and I looked at the catalogs of the books that were presented. And for one, as a trustee, I'm appalled at what we are presenting to the public in today's time. So if you go to the webpage, the first topic is we have books by Muslim writers. So I don't really have an issue with anything with books with Muslim writers, but why don't we have books by Catholic writers or Mormon writers or Jewish writers or Baptist writers? So we're highlighting the Muslim writers. Then the thing that most upsets me is Dismantling Systemic Racism is the title. You have to go there. I'll hold it up if anybody can see. You probably can't read it, but it's, so, we have this new word, systemic racism. I'm not sure anybody knows what it means. But then we have a book by Miss Con Cullors, who I'll show you if you want to read the paper. She's a Marxist. She's one of the founders of Black Lives Matter. She's anti-Semitic. Their policy is BDS boycott, divestiture sanctions against Israel, okay? Their leader in New York said, if this country doesn't give us what we want, we will burn down the system and replace it. That's Hank Newsom said that on Fox News. And we're promoting these kind of books for our public to read. To me, this is not proper, okay? If we're going to put those in, then there ought to be some books to tell the other side. We're changing the history of America here. In a library, which is supposed to be non-partial, is doing this, and we're right behind it with it. So we then lead into the next category, available titles on race in America. Black Lives documentaries. Why don't we have some White Lives documentaries? Then we go further that outrages a certain segment of our population. We have Rainbow Reads for Teens, okay? Why don't we have the flip side of the Rainbow Books for Teens? Then the next one, we have Rainbow Books for Young Readers. So I don't know what we're going to encourage our young readers to do, but those type of titles highlighted are offensive to many, many citizens of Fairfax County. They're offensive to the Catholic community. They're offensive to the Baptist community. They're offensive to the Mormon community, and we're promoting it on our website. And so I would like to propose something with Jessica meeting where somewhere there somebody starts reviewing what we're putting out there for people in this country to read. The other lady from Black Lives Matter, Miss Garcia, she said, Black lives can't matter under capitalism. Okay, that's like oil and water. These people were communists, they're Marxists, and we're given the format in the libraries of Fairfax County. And this is not something there's one trustee that I think is right, that I think is proper. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you, Philip. I think it's important to hear all points of view. And I remember when I was a branch manager and I was talking to a patron, we called him in those days, about the different magazines that we had. He was, you know, he was upset about, did we have too many on one side and not enough on the other? And, you know, I sort of walked him through the balance of the collection that we had. And he used a phrase that I remembered, and it's been more than 30 years, but he said, well, this has been very interesting because I thought you just had a lot of left-wing stuff, but I see you have the other side, and, you know, it does take both wings to fly. So I think the point that you raise is an interesting one for us to examine, and perhaps someone from collection development would be a good presentation for the library to see how
I think we have to request some kind of meeting somewhere. Some trustees have to sit down with these people because there's no other side. There's one side when you go on this website, other catalog. There's no second side. There's one side.
Well, I think it would be good to start with an assessment from our collection development department, and I will work with Jessica to bring that about. Jessica, do you want to say anything too?
I'm happy to have someone from our collection services staff come and speak at a future meeting, and I concur with your statements, Fran, that the library's goal of collection development is to provide both sides of an issue. While we highlight some collections because there's either increased interest and we want to make it easier for people to find those materials, or we're trying to support community initiatives, that doesn't mean that the other materials aren't there for access. But I will happily defer to our collection staff at a future presentation.
So I take issue with that, Jessica. You know, this is, to Phil's point, this is a catalog homepage. It is completely one-sided. That, you know, to hide behind to say it's increased interest or community is solely inaccurate. If it was, you know, two wings, put the two wings up. But if you go on a catalog homepage, it is social justice, and there's nothing wrong with social justice, but you got to put it within a framework. And
Okay,
that's
so
Phil's
I'm gonna
point.
wait, Darren. I'm gonna cut you off, even though I'm not chair now. The board meeting structure is pretty specific.
No, that's
around
fine.
what we are, I'm sorry, about what we are
No, that's okay. You're no
speaking
longer,
about. And so if
president,
this
Fran
is
can
an
cut me off, but
issue,
I'll be done. I'll be done anyway.
Okay, but while I think this goes to Phil's point too, is that, you know, if this is an issue, there are specific ways to bring up new business for meetings so that we can be prepared, so that we have information. So if anybody here, and Fran, I'm sorry to usurp you, but just to remind people, if anybody wants to bring up an issue for a substantive conversation, please let Jessica or John know in advance so it can go on the agenda, and then we can have a real conversation with whatever information we need to have. So I think at this point, I just wanted to clarify where we are on the roundtable.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
appreciate
Fran.
We
that.
gave you plenty of time to talk on your thing. I think you should allow Darren and anybody else who wants to comment to have their time. We gave you your
I
time.
know that. Then I'm
Okay.
suggesting
But you're
how
not
you
the
do
chair.
it is put it on as a business agenda item so that we can have an
There's
actual
no business
discussion.
agenda item on it. That's why I brought it up in this roundtable. There's no new business item on the agenda.
Okay, well,
So you should let the rest
So
of the
we
people
can bring
have
it up as
we
a
let
new
you have your
business
say,
item.
Miriam. It's time for you to let everybody else have
I
their
know that. I'm
say.
suggesting to
If I
you.
had a real gavel, I would be banging it now to bring attention to the fact that I don't think we need to get into a back and forth on this. I also one of the reasons I wanted to add a new business item to the agenda is that a lot of times there are more serious things that need to be brought up, and the only opportunity does seem to be the round table. I think that the board members have not always sent in a new business item when the opportunity came. So I would charge every board member that if there's something that is on your mind, it's important, and it's important enough to be considered in new business, and that's where it should be. And I just leave it at that. Now, Darren, did you get a chance to speak in roundtable?
No, I have not. So thank you very much for that, Fran. I'll defer to Gary quickly. Gary, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I knew that Phil was going to bring this up, and I prepared a statement that I wanted to read, because this is for reasons I won't get into. I have a very personal and selfish interest in pursuing racial justice, but I also have some concerns that all sides aren't being heard, not necessarily just the library, but just in general in the national debate. But I also agree with Miriam that the time to do this is a business item where we can thoroughly discuss it. And so I thank you, Fran, for your direction, and I look forward to doing that. But thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gary. Is there anyone else that I?
Wait, so let me do my roundtable then. I thought Gary wanted to. So first off, I want to thank Miriam for her service and during her tenure. It was wonderful having her at the helm. Fran and Jane, I wish both of you best wishes moving forward, and look forward to working with you all. I too have used Express Services at Tyson's Pimmet, and it worked flawlessly. Matter of fact, it was so fast. I hope we continue it in perpetuity. Aaron, welcome on board, and I expect a great annual report from you as well. And perhaps I think marketing might have a hand in some of that catalog stuff. I know it can get heated. It's an issue that I think both sides are passionate about, but we definitely need to flesh out. But perhaps that's something that may be on your plate as well, Aaron. But welcome on board. We are 99.99% of the time collegial, so just want to throw that out there. I do want to say I appreciate all that FCPL staff and administration have done. The flexibility through these tough times. It has just the seamlessness. So we don't have physical branches. We didn't, I would say, so what? In my opinion, I had connectivity. I had access to books, to collections, databases, et cetera. Some may not with internet access, but generally I thought that, the amount of effort that was demonstrated, and the rollout. The rollout required a tremendous amount of work, doing things differently. So the ability to be flexible through change, I applaud you all tremendously for those efforts and hard work. And that's pretty much all I have to say. I'll leave it at that, and I look forward to, we're off in August, so September, right? Great vacations, everybody.
Okay. Thank you, Darren. And I think Suzanne, who usually has to go first and now is last. Sorry.
Thank you, Fran. I wanted to mention that 2 new city council members were sworn in virtually at the end of June. Their names are Joe Harmon and Tom Ross. Mayor Meyer was reelected. The city council's been meeting virtually since this all began. And City Hall is closed, but you can make an appointment to go in should you need to. I want to thank all the staff across the board for all their hard work. And I wanted to share a story from one of the Fairfax staff members. The first week they were open, you know, they're all wearing their masks and the customers are wearing their masks, and a customer decides to drop their mask so they can make their point to the library staff member. And she just kind of freaked out, she said. But people are trying really hard. But if you are wearing your mask, don't drop your mask to talk to somebody. They'll hear you through it. I want to again thank Miriam for her leadership, and congratulations to Fran and Jane. I know you're going to do a super job. And I also want to remind you that the Virginia Room staff is collecting COVID stories, COVID pictures. And if you go to the Virginia Room website, it tells you how to share your submissions. If you've written a COVID-related poem or a short story, Ms. Sheila, or something on the whole topic of quarantining, they would love to collect it from you for future reference. And thank you very much. Have a good August.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I have one last little thing for the roundtable, in that the Cook the Book program that is at George, and I think also at Martha, and we've been meeting virtually, and I can't wait for that to be real again, because rather than just talk about food, we always brought food and shared a meal together, and it's just not the same to look at a recipe and talk about it at all. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
Hey, thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.